So I had a idea originally, and I thought about it, and I scratched it. So, excuse me. Mitsuki Bakugo and Katsuki Bakugo are siblings, not mother and son this time. It's Inko Bakugo this time. Inko has a cat quirk, and her husband, Mitsuki's husband in canon, has the explosion quirk. So Bakugo has a explosion quirk with the unnatural battle instincts. That's how I got it in this one. And Mitsuki has the ability to sweat nitroglycerin and, on impact, light it. So she can sweat it from her entire body, anywhere on her body. And she doesn't normally sweat. It's only when her quirk is active she sweats. So, so she still has to drink water, but she has to drink a lot more water than normal people because she has the skin condition that when that that her skin normally doesn't have pores, but it does since she can still sweat nitroglycerin. But the difference between her and Bakugo is she has cat ears, cat eyes, cat tail, and unnatural flexibility from a cat. But she doesn't have the animalistic instincts for fighting like Bakugo does. So he got the animalistic instincts. He got also the explosions, but she got nitroglycerin and the cat features and the flexibility of a cat. So I'll be right back. On her 4th birthday, her parents got her a mask that changes, not changes, that fits on her. This picture is called Bakugo Dragon Queen, but this is gonna work for the best. This is gonna work the best for this. So Mitsuki is growing up next to Bakugo, but she grows up this kind-hearted person, and Bakugo grows up his canon self. And he sees his kind-hearted sister, and he thinks she's a weakling, so he bullies her, even though she's older by a few seconds, because they are twins, fraternal twins. So he bullies her, and when they get home, he stops the bullying, because he knows what his mother and father will do if they find out that she's being bullied by him. So at school, she gets bullied and called a weakling for being a freak. And she goes home one day, and she goes into her room and closes the door and puts her face into her pillow and starts crying. And Inko calls everybody down for dinner, and Bakugo walks down the stairs, and Mitsuki never comes down. So they continue eating, and at the end of dinner, they ask Bakugo has he seen his sister, and he goes, no, she went into her room and she hasn't come out yet. And she normally wears long sleeved shirts so she can hide her arms, but Bakugo says, I'll go check on her, and he goes upstairs, and she's in her personal bathroom, because Bakugo has a bathroom, she has a bathroom, their parents have a bathroom in their rooms, and she looks at her, or he looks at her, and he sees that her arm is bleeding. And he yells down, call an ambulance. And Inko, hearing this, runs upstairs and sees what's happening and goes, what the hell's happening at school? And Bakugo goes, I don't know. And he's lying through his teeth, but he's scared that his sister's gonna die. Because deep down he still loves his sister, but he just thinks that she's weird, and he's like, I'm gonna give her some tough brother love and pick on her. And so the ambulance gets there. They they run up the stairs, they pick up Mitsuki and take her to the hospital. And Inko follows them. Inko has green hair, and in this one, their father has the blonde hair, so they got the blonde hair from him. And he is talking to Bakugo and trying to understand what's happening at school. And he finally spills it that she's been bullied at school, and every time he comes around, the bully is gone. And he's lying through his teeth again because he doesn't want to tell them and get in trouble that he's been bullying her and that this is all his fault. So he's like, okay, I'll tell this to your mother. And he calls Inko, and Inko goes, "What?" And she starts yelling with the Mitsuki personality of what's going wrong, what did I do wrong? And Bakugo feels terrible. I know this is not a Bakugo character fixing arc, because he's still going to be Bakugo. He's going to still call everybody extras and say that everybody can't beat him. But Mitsuki finally wakes up and she's in a hospital bed, and every object that is close to being sharp is taken out of the room. And Inko is sitting there and she's crying, wondering what she did wrong and how she can help. Mitsuki sees this and just is emotionless at this point because she tried to kill herself with cutting her arm. Well, both of her arms, actually. So she looks down and sees that both her arms are bandaged up and she can't move her fingers. And her hand isn't cut or damaged at all. It's just that her fingers have claws on them. Cat claws. Duh. But she sees this and she just lays back in bed and just lays there, looking up at the ceiling, not talking, barely breathing, because she's still trying to kill herself, but she can't. So she's trying to suffocate herself. And she's just sitting there, lying there, looking up at the ceiling. And Inko finally stops crying for long enough to see that she's awake, and Inko jumps on her and hugs her and says that she was so scared, and with an emotionless tone asks, "Why? Nobody loves me. Nobody cares for me." And Inko hears this and is like, what happened? And we go back a few days to Bakugo bullying Mitsuki, and saying that nobody actually cares for her, that she's just a ooh, I want to watch that one. That she's just a freak in the household. Mom doesn't care for her, dad doesn't care for her, and she trusts her little brother. And so she accepted this as fact slightly, and then the next day that she got in trouble for something he did, and he blamed it on her, and she tried to make her case, and her parents were too mad to understand and accept the facts for facts. So she was blamed, and she's like, oh, so they really don't love me. And that is what sent her down this rabbit hole. The next day she started cutting herself, and she bandaged her arms up, and the next day she cut herself, and then this time she passed out while cutting herself. And that's how they got here. And she's just emotionless, and she's just lying there, and Inko's like, what did I do? And she starts crying again, being like, what's wrong? And Bakugo after a week of Mitsuki being in the hospital, well, she was finally released, and she was told that she can't have any sharp objects at all, not even pencils. Someone's going to have to write for her because of her mental state. And so she goes to school, and she doesn't go to normal class. She goes to a different class, a classroom that people have to write what she says. And she's literally cuffed to a table so she can't hurt herself. And this is an extreme, and one of the police officers is like, why are we doing this? And the school nurse walks in, and this is one of the only people that Mitsuki knows that actually cares for her. And she walks in, and she starts writing for Mitsuki. And after the school assignments are done and she learns her lessons, the school nurse asks, "So, how are you feeling?" And Mitsuki goes, "Okay, I guess. There's really nothing for me to live for." And she's just in a motionless tone, talking of how her brother, her mother, and her father all don't care for her, and they just want her to get rid of her. And at this time, they've already gone to the quirk doctor. They know what her quirk is, and she still has the improved eyesight, hearing, smells, and the sense whenever something bad's gonna happen. But Bakugo has the fighting sense still, so he has the improved uh, fighting tactics, like in canon. So the nurse starts talking to Mitsuki, and she gets the full story from Mitsuki after a while of poking and prodding of what Mitsuki found out, or what Mitsuki heard and felt. And the cop was balling his fist, being like, "What the hell is going on in this household?" And the nurse sees this and pulls the cop out of the room for a second, and Mitsuki's still chained up because she has the desire to kill herself at this point. And Mitsuki's just sitting there being like, I can't do anything right. I just need to leave this earth so no one has to deal with me anymore. And the nurse pulls the cop out of the uh, classroom, the spare classroom, and says to the cop, "This little girl was the cinnamon roll of the school." And he's like, "What do you mean cinnamon roll?" And she says, "This little girl in this classroom was the most cheery, most loving person, kindest you'll ever find anywhere until a few weeks ago, when I overheard her brother talking down to her. Her younger brother, to be exact." And this cop is like, "Okay, what did he say?" And the nurse heard the entire conversation between Bakugo and Mitsuki about how Mitsuki isn't loved by anybody. And she says that this Bakugo kid needs to either be rehabilitated to actually be a hero like he wants to be, or his parents need to discipline him for bullying his sister. "So I need you," and she points at him and says, "I need you to go talk to their parents and get the story from Bakugo and try to make the stories line up so we know exactly what happened to her so we can reverse what happened." And he goes, "Okay, I'll go talk to them." And she has to be driven to school in a squad car, or so she doesn't hurt herself on the way to school. Because they're not that far, but it's in walking distance. Bakugo walks to school. Inko goes to work. She's a lawyer. Um, their father has to go to work, so he can keep the house and pay for all the food that they eat. And while this is all happening, uh, the cop walks her out to the squad car, puts her in gently, and stay there for 1 second. He closes the door, and she starts to bang her head against the glass. He's like, oh, crap. So he opens the door, and he grabs her and hugs her, saying, it's okay, you'll be fine. There's people who care about you. You just need to look. And she goes, no, there isn't. And she starts yelling, and by this point, she's going crazy from the idea of no one cares for her. No one wants her around. And she's gone completely bonkers from this. And Bakugo hears this and is like, oh crap, what did I do? And he starts to stay away from the police officer. He starts to walk around the police car. And one of the students, Mina's in this school, notices this. She's not in their class, but she's in the same school. And she walks up to Bakugo and asks, why are you avoiding the police car? Did you do something wrong? And he goes, no, I didn't. And he's stuttering, trying to get the words that he didn't out. And she goes, okay. And she walks up to the police officer and asks, do you need any help? And he says, yes, please, I need help keeping her still for a second. I'm looking for a kid named Katsuki Bakugo. And Izumi hearing that, or not, damn it, Mitsuki hearing that name starts to cry, being like, he doesn't care for me, he hates me. And Mina goes into the hug and makes it a group hug, being like, I thought you were cool. I wanted to be your friend. And Mitsuki hearing this is like, you just want to torture me like my brother does. Because I don't deserve to be here. I don't deserve to live. And Mina's like, what the hell is wrong with you? And Mina does something that she normally never does. She slaps Mitsuki and says, you are the kindest person at school. You made me what I am now. A kind-hearted person who's loved by pretty much everybody because of what I do. And what I do is I ship people together. And the cop hears this and goes, I can't believe there's actually someone who does that still. And she goes, oh yeah, I have a whole posse that do it. But she looks back at Mitsuki and says, you are the school cinnamon roll. You are the kindest, you are the loveliest person on this entire campus. And now you say you don't deserve to be here? That's BS. And Mitsuki is like, you're just saying this to say this. And she goes, I'm not saying this just to say this. I'm saying this because I need to say this. And yeah, funny. That's a very strange picture. And so the cop says, can you please sit here for a second? I'm going to go and look for this child. And she goes, blonde hair, cat-like eyes, explosion quirk. And he goes, yeah. She goes, he went that way. And he goes, thank you. And he runs after Katsuki Bakugo, and Bakugo doesn't notice the cop, but the cop walks up behind him and says, I'd like to talk to you for a minute. And Bakugo freezes and goes, sure. And the cop noticed him freeze, and he asks Bakugo, do you know who bullied your sister? Because she's mentally broken from it. And he goes, no, I don't. And the cop knows that's an absolute lie, because every time every time someone mentions Bakugo or her parents, she says that he's just going to torture her more if she goes home. And he goes, okay, I'm going to go with you to your home after I drop off your sister, and I'm going to wait for your parents. because I would like to talk to them. And he goes, okay. And the cop says, can you please call them and tell them that I'm coming? And he goes, sure. So he runs back to the squad car and sees Mina hugging a passed out Mitsuki, and says, oh, okay, you want to come with me? And Mina goes, sure, why not? And Mina hops into the back of the squad car, still hugging the passed out Mitsuki, because Mitsuki's tightly hugging her, and she's crying while still asleep. And the cop sees this and goes, okay, so we need to have them stay together as long as possible. So the cop gets to the bakugo residence and walks in after Bakugo invites him in, and he says hers is the second room to the left. And he goes, okay, Mina, can you take her there? And Mina goes, sure. And Mina at this point is basically carrying Mitsuki, and Mitsuki wakes up and sees Mina and starts to squirm a little, and Mina goes, whoa, 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 don't you dare try to run away. I'll hug you harder. And Mitsuki goes, but no one wants me. And Mina goes, stop lying to yourself, A, and B, I got a secret to tell you. And Mitsuki's like, you don't want to tell me a secret? I'm just a worthless person. And Mina goes, I'll slap you again. And Mitsuki goes, okay. And she just stays quiet, and they go up to her room. And the entire time, Mitsuki's mumbling to herself of how worthless she is and how her brother's right, that no one wants her, no one cares for her, and that Mina's only there to hit her. And Mina, hearing this, starts to tear up, being like, oh God, what did he do to her? And the cop is just sitting on the couch waiting for the owners of the household to come home. First one home is Bakugo's father. And the cop says, can you please go up to your room so I can talk to your father in private? And Bakugo goes, sure. And he walks in and he greets the police officer, and the police officer says that I brought someone over to comfort your daughter and to calm her down, because this was the only person that was willing to help and successfully calmed her down. And Bakugo's father says, who? We need her to live here. And he yelled this, and Mina's like, I feel like someone's talking about me. And he goes, sir, her name is Mina Ashido. She has a mutation quirk, and she was bullied until Mitsuki apparently saved her from the bullies. And Mr. Baku, I'm going to call him that, says, that sounds like the Mitsuki I know. I don't know why she started doing this. I don't know how this started happening. I just know that this started all of a sudden, and now this is happening. And in this time, Mitsuki's asleep, and she's in her own mind, and she finally wakes up, and the original Mitsuki wakes up, and she sees three people: her older self, her younger self, and herself. Her older self looks like this. Hold on. Her younger self kind of looks like this, she's really short, and she looks like this. So she sees these three people, and the younger one is the happy-go-lucky kind of person, and the older one is playing with a knife and has a hand in front of her, and she's currently stabbing it. And Mitsuki is holding a knife, and it's covered in blood, and she has cuts on her arm. And the older one looks at her and says, why? The younger one goes, this isn't you. And Mitsuki looks at these and goes, who are you? And they start having a full-blown conversation, and the older Mitsuki Bakugo says, "My name is Mitsuki Bakugo, and I am your mature conscience, and that is Mitsuki Bakugo, your immature conscience, and you are Mitsuki Bakugo, the depressed conscience." And she looks and she sees that the mature Bakugo has abs ripped and has blood all over her, and the younger one has no blood, and she just has stuffed animals ripped apart. And she goes, "What?" And the mature conscience says, I'm just going to call it adult, child, and normal. So adult Mitsuki says, yeah, I'm you when you're at normal. When you're your true self, I'm you. And Mitsuki looks at child Mitsuki and she goes, I'm you when you're putting on a mask. And they both look at her and they say it in unison, you are you right this second. And Mitsuki's like, okay. I don't understand anything that's going on. And at this point, a random no-faced villain appears, and the adult Mitsuki runs at him and starts tearing him apart with the knives and the claws and the contact explosives that she can use. And she's smiling and laughing maniacally during the entire thing. And Mitsuki sees this and she's like, okay. And child Mitsuki looks over and goes, yeah. It's dirty. Yeah. And depressed Mitsuki starts to chuckle at this, being like, yeah, it sounds like me when I put on my mask. Wait, what? I always thought that was normal. So she's asleep in the real world, and while this is all happening in her mind, Mina is just sitting there, and she's thinking. And it's bad when Mina thinks. And she's thinking of the ship for Mitsuki and who she can hook Mitsuki up with for her to get better. And she's thinking and thinking, and she can't think of anybody. And so she calls up her friend Kirishima, who's also a fellow shipper, and she asks, do you remember the girl named Mitsuki Bakugo? And he goes, yeah, the cinnamon roll of school. And she goes, yeah, I'm trying to think of the ship for her. And Kirishima starts laughing his ass off, being like, oh my god, you can't think of a ship, can you? And she goes, no. And he goes, I only think of one ship. And I'm not telling you. And he hangs up. And so she calls back and asks, did you hang up on me? And he goes, I don't know. Did it sound like this? And he hangs up again. If anybody knows that reference, put in the comments and I'll give you 10 billion points that do absolutely nothing. So, Mitsuki is now been asleep for an hour, and in her mind it's been a few years. And she wakes up and she's not the depressed Mitsuki anymore. She is the adult Mitsuki and the child Mitsuki mixed together. So she has the severe mood swings right now, and they're 6-ish. And so she wakes up and her eyes aren't normal like human eyes. They're cat eyes now. Oh God, that's gonna be bad. Ooh, Nerd Out 2. Oh God, I don't like this. So Mina sees this and she sees the eyes are glowing, and she's like, Mitsuki, are you okay? And Mitsuki goes, I'm perfectly fine. You're Mina Ashido, right? And she's talking normally. She's not doubting herself anymore. She's the strong Mitsuki we know from canon, and she goes, yeah, I'm Mina Ashido. Are you sure you're okay? You're just trying to kill yourself. And she goes, I know. I'm over it now. I don't need anybody. And she gets up and she still has the cuffs on because she would be trying to kill herself right this second. And she just uses her quirk and pulls against the cuffs and they blast off. And it was a little too powerful. She's like, oh crap, that was a little loud. Well, talk to you later. Bye. And she jumps out the window. And Mina's like, that was strange. And Baku came running into the room because he heard the explosion and she's like, what happened? What happened? And Mina looks at him pissed off and says, I don't want to talk to you. And she walks out of the room and he's like, I really messed up, didn't I? And he's thinking about this and he's getting depressed because he might have lost his only real family member who really cared about him besides his mother and father. And his only true friend that he considers a friend because he considers his parents family and his sister a friend and family, which he considers only her his friend. And so we skip to a certain hero running across rooftops, and he's patrolling and he's running around looking for any crimes, and he hears a scream from a man, and he runs over and sees this villain being attacked by a little girl. And this girl has what looks like cuff marks because her quirk, she hasn't trained her quirk very much, so it does leave bruises. So she blew the cuffs off and it left bruises, and she currently has a crop top on, a short sleeve crop top. So he sees the cuts on her arms, and he sees that she's wearing no shoes, she's wearing short shorts, a crop top, and that's it. And she's fighting somebody. And this villain is screaming because he just lost a hand. And she's laughing maniacally. And she goes, how does it feel? How does it feel to be on the receiving end of a beating? And she's laughing through the entire thing. Her eyes are still glowing. And the guy is like, oh, God, please stop. And she basically uses an explosion on one of her feet to launch her forward, and she punches his other hand and blows it off. And blood and meat chunks are flying everywhere. And she starts laughing even harder, being like, no, you can't do anything. And he's like, oh, please stop. I will stop being a villain. Please stop. And she goes, I don't care. This is fun. And she just runs up and punches him in the head and blowing his jaw off. And she's like, that was fun. Time to find another one. And she stomps the ground, blasting herself up to the roof. And Aizawa catches up to her, or not catches up to her, is right in front of her. And she goes, oh, hi, Eraserhead. And she's about to stomp off. And he goes, wait. And she goes, what? And he goes, you assaulted that man down there, didn't you? And she goes, no. I ran away from home and he attacked me first. So I kind of gave him a taste of his own medicine. And she just smiles with this creepy big smile. And he goes, I'm sorry, but you did unneeded brutality. And she goes, he threatened to kill me and rape me at the same time, so I don't think that was a unneeded brutality. I did leave him alive, though. He's currently bleeding out, though, so if you don't call an ambulance, he will die. And he goes, oh, crap. So he calls an ambulance, saying that there's a new vigilante on the loose, and whoever sees her, be careful. If you attack her first, she will attack you, and she is brutal. And so Bakugo runs downstairs and interrupts the conversation with Inko. Mina is just walking down the stairs. Bakugo flies over her, runs into the room with everybody else, and says that Mitsuki has ran away. And the cop looks at him and goes, I told you to stay in your room. And he goes, I know, but I heard an explosion, and it wasn't my quirk, so I checked on Mitsuki, and she's gone. And Mina walks in the room and says, she was asleep for around an hour while you guys were down here, and she woke up, her eyes started glowing, and she was perfectly fine. She wasn't doubting herself anymore. She wasn't mumbling about how her life sucked. She was perfectly fine. And then she jumped out the window. And the cop is like, okay. And all of a sudden he gets a 911 call being there was a villain that was attacked a little girl, and the little girl severely injured the villain, and the villain's in critical condition, and he's like, I'm sorry, but I have to go, and just to tell you, Miss Bakugo and Mr. Bakugo, your son was the one that bullied your daughter, and she was the only one who stood up for the rest of the students in school from him. So he's the only one who bullied her. And he walks out and says, thank you for your time. I'm glad I got the story straight. And if you want the story completely and I have time, please call me here. I am free from blank to blank. And hold on. Uh, yeah, you probably see just like a skip in like a few seconds for this video, but it was like an hour to in time jump in the recording. So whatever she was doing, because I'd have to stop this recording, rewatch it, resay this entire recording, so it's one fluid video. But whatever she was doing, she finished that up, and it's been roughly 4 years since Mitsuki's gone missing. Bakugo has completely changed personalities. He's more of the I can't do anything right. My quirk is too dangerous for anybody to be hit by, and I'm not where I'm not a I'm not going to be a hero ever. And he's gone to quirk counseling. He's gone to counseling because he feels the most guilt out of everybody. Because he was the one who bullied her the most. He was the one who treated her like trash the most. So we go to Mitsuki, and she's currently torturing a villain. She's torturing a villain, and she has two people behind her. She's got a guy that looks like a burnt chicken nugget and a girl that has a mask on that loves to watch blood flow from people. And this villain finally spills where the base is hidden, and she goes, good. Now you can go just frick off and die. And she punches him and knocks him out with an explosion. And she calls the police, saying, with obviously a change in her voice, saying that there's a villain knocked out in an alley a few blocks down from where she is right this second, and that it looks like the Mad Bomber is back. And she's made her name name for herself because it looks like an explosive. Uh, Someone with a lot of explosives comes through the area when she's done with it. And she takes him back to the alley that she found him in and drops him off and goes, well, he might not survive, and just walks away. Dobby says, you are brutal. And she goes, no, I'm not. If anybody's brutal, it'd be my brother. They deserve what I do to them. He tortures people who don't deserve it at all. And Toga's like, can you bleed already? And Mitsuki's like, Toga, I already told you, I'm not going to cut myself anymore. I found something funner. And Toga's like, oh, what is it? And she goes, it's time to massacre a ton of villains. And Toga's like, blood. And Dobby's like, oh god, this is going to be a nightmare. So they walk to this thug hideout, and they walk in, and she's got this look going. She's ripped as all hell, and she's cracking her knuckles and cracking her neck when she walks in. She's got the cape to just emphasize who she is. And she has her Oni mask on. The half Oni mask that I showed you earlier. Hold on. It's this one. It's this mask. By this time, she's grown up. She's grown a foot. She's grown 2 feet. 2 feet. So she was originally 4, now she's 6 foot. And she still has room to grow. She will grow a little bit more. And no, she won't be a lolly. She will have a good sized chest. But she walks in and she starts cracking her knuckles, and the thug at the door saw her coming and is like, oh crap. And he leaves the door trying to hide, and he calls his boss saying, the bomber's coming. And he goes, what do you mean the bomber? And he says, the mad bomber. The sadistic bee that has been abducting the crew and leaving them half dead on the ground for the police to find. His eyes widen, going, oh crap. And he yells, everybody get out! All of a sudden, the main front door flies off the hinges with an explosion and has a fist indent in it. And Dobby's right behind her, and Toga's behind her, and she goes, I don't like killing. Toga, do your worst. And she just parts from the doorway and waves Toga in, and Toga's like, is this a gift for me? And Mitsuki goes, no. It's your test. And Toga goes, test? I don't like tests. And Mitsuki goes, if you can make them only bleed and don't actually do a killing shot, you're in. But if you kill a single one of them, you don't get to see me bleed. And Toga's eyes light up because there's a chance of her seeing Mitsuki bleed. And just like in canon, she has an unhealthy addiction to cute things and making them bleed. So she goes, sure. And so Mitsuki calls a phone, or phones the police again, and says, I think that there's a robbery or some kind of fight in an abandoned warehouse. I've just walked by and I didn't look inside, but one of the doors is blown off the hinges. And she explains what she sees from the outside and says that I hear screaming from inside, Please help. And the dispatcher says a police car is on their way. And she says, Toga, you have a minute. And Toga's like, okay. And she starts going to town even faster. And I'm not giving Toga the same quirk as in canon. I'm giving her a different quirk. It's the more blood that touches her and she licks off her blade or just consumes, the faster and stronger she becomes. So she's a legitimate vampire. With the added effect that if she has consumed blood from a specific person in the last 20-ish minutes, she can transform into that person for 5 minutes. So Toga, she starts beating the crap out of the thugs, and she finishes up and runs out and says, I'm done. And Mitsuki says, 15 seconds, good job. And they go, and Dabi goes, you want me to start the fire? And she goes, nah, they're about to be here. Let's go. And so they walk away at civilian pace, and they walk around a corner, hiding. And the dispatcher says, stay there, to Mitsuki, and she just hung up and threw the phone down. It wasn't her phone, it was just a random person's phone that she found at the front door. So she threw it down and stomped on it, blowing it up, so there's no trace of the phone. So they don't have her fingerprints. But what she forgot was that her footprints were left in the dirt. And she forgets that a lot, that footprints are left in the ashes, or the ashes leave footprints, or the remnants of the explosions leave footprints, because she keeps her feet bare now. She doesn't wear flip-flops, she doesn't wear any kind of shoes or socks, she just keeps her feet bare. And the next thing that happens is she walks around a corner and says, I know you're there, please come out. And this man comes out of the shadows and says, so, how'd you know I was here? And she goes, I sensed something over there, and you were over there. So I was kinda close. Wait, no, there's still someone over there. And he looks over and sees nobody, and she goes, you can come out of the shadows now, whoever you are. And Kurogiri steps out and says, I'd like to make a proposition with you. And she goes, you villain or hero? And he goes, I am neither. I am just a humble servant. And she goes, then is your master a villain or a hero? And he goes, my master is all for one. And the man standing next to Kurogiri widens his eyes and goes, okay then. And Kurogiri still has the portal open to his back, and when he opens a portal, he can shut it down if he activates his quirk again, but he doesn't need to keep his quirk active to have the portal open. Izumi goes, nah, and rockets off towards Kurogiri at a blinding speed and punches him back through the portal, leaving a hole in Kurogiri's chest. Since Kurogiri is a corpse, that doesn't really affect him very much. But Kurogiri gets sent through the portal, and the portal closes behind Kurogiri because no one wants the Mad Bomber to come through the portal if there's the hideout of the League of Villains there. So Kurogiri shut the portal when he got launched back through, and Aizawa saw this, and she asked him the same question. Are you a hero, or are you a villain? And he goes, I'm a hero. And she goes, wait, I've seen you before. You're that underground hero. What's his name? And Dabi goes, Eraserhead. She goes, yeah! Damn, who thought of that name? That's a dumb name. And she starts laughing. And he goes, I know. Oh my god. The Mad Bomber is not a bad name. And she goes, no, it's not. I still don't like it though. I'd prefer Ground Zero. And when she said ground zero, she had a massive headache. She goes, damn it, why is that damn name hitting my head so hard? Oh, spam risk. Nope. And so they ask, or Dobby asks, oh crap, what's wrong? And she goes, I don't know. I have a massive headache. And she's gritting her teeth, and her headache is getting worse and worse. And all of a sudden, the child form of her comes out. And she's all nice and cuddly at this point, and Toga sees this and is like, can I cut you? And she goes, please don't. And since her mentality changed and her quirk changed with her mentality. Oh, okay. Wild Rome. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Um, whoever you are, that's funny. I'll talk to you later. But the child version comes out and sees these two people, and say, we kind of need to leave. And they ask why, and she goes, I can't fight him. I can't fight. And Dobby's like, oh God. And Aizawa says, I'm not here to fight. I'm not here to fight. I'm just here to understand. And she goes, okay, what do you want to understand? And he says, I want to understand why you do what you do. And she goes, oh, I don't like killing, so I don't physically kill. They die from blood loss, that's not my fault. And he goes, okay, I understand that. And why did you go to the extremes of blowing their jaws off when you're done with them? And she goes, so they can't talk crap about anybody? So they stop running their mouth, and if they have a vocal quirk, they can't use it. If they got a hand quirk, I blow their hands off. They got a running quirk, I blow their feet off. I normally blow their jaw off whenever they're just too annoying, or I needed information from them and I just didn't want them to talk anymore. And she starts walking away, and he goes, one more question. And she goes, yes. And he asks this very important question. He goes, if I could expunge your criminal record. And she goes, I'm not a criminal. I fight criminals. And he goes, sorry. If I can keep you out of prison because the law says you're a criminal, but I know you're not, would you go to UA? And she puts a finger on her chin, going, And she looks at him and goes, if a kid named Katsuki Bakugo is going to UA and I get to torture him one time, then yes. And he goes, okay. How do you want to torture him? And that depends. And she goes, verbally. Every day I get to torture him once with a comment. And he goes, okay. I will allow you to comment to him once, and then the rest of the day you cannot talk to him. And she goes, that seems fair, but these two got to come with me. And he looks at Toga and Dobby and says, okay, how old are you two? And Toga goes, I'm 10. And Dobby goes, I'm 12. Then he looks at Dobby and says, would you happen to be a Todoroki? And Dobby goes, Yeah, that asshole of a father beat me, my brothers, my sisters, my mother too. And he says all this negative stuff about Endeavor. And Aizawa goes, okay, I have a separate deal for you, but you definitely can get into UA. And he looks at uh, Mitsuki and says, so what do you say? And she goes, okay. And she walks with him, and she still has the cat ears, the cat tail, and all the cat features. But her hair has grown a lot longer, and it changed colors. When it got to the end, it went from blonde to yellow, and then at the end it would be red. So it looks like a flame. Looks like her hair's on fire. Hold on. Her hair looks like this. And this is somewhat of a foreshadow of what my next uh, what if will be. But that's going to be a one shot. So we go to we go 3 months in, or not 3 months, 3 years into their rehabilitation. Well, sorry, rehab from being villains or being legal villains, but not actual villains because they only fought villains and heroes who broke the law. And they, well, Toya gets into UA, and he's known as Dabi instead of Toya Todoroki. And Mitsuki and Dabi and Toga are all living in an apartment together. And they live together like brothers and sisters. And Toya is used to this because he was in a household of brothers and sisters, and he just was like, okay, I just need to bring that life over to here. And Toga asked Izumi while she's still in kid form, because it's been 3 years and she hasn't gone to adult form yet, or adult mentality, where she's sadistic, asks if Toga could have a little cut on the arm, please. And Mitsuki says no. And Toga appears behind her, or with her stealth abilities, because Toga is surprisingly stealthy, and she cuts Mitsuki in the neck. Just a tiny bit of neck. So it doesn't draw blood, but it does give Mitsuki a little bit of pain. And Mitsuki changes from kid form to sadistic adult form and asks Toga if she wants to go through the ringer again. And Toga pales, going, no, 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 I don't, no, no. And she goes, then why'd you cut me? And Toga goes, I wanted blood. And Mitsuki goes, yes, but I told you, you gotta get over that blood addiction. And she goes, I know. Once I get over it, then you'll allow me to cut you once a day. And she goes, no, once a week. Just, dang it. I was wondering if you forget it. And Mitsuki goes, I'll never forget the deal we made. It's the only thing stopping you from becoming a villain. And Toya says, it's my first day at UA. See you guys after school. And I go, bye. And Mitsuki is basically attached to Toya and Toga. And she says, bye, big bro. And he goes, okay, bye, little sis. And Toga's like, oh, okay. And by this time, Kirishima and Bakugo have become semi-friends. Kirishima's still pissed off at Bakugo that he would bully his little sister, and every time that they start sparring, Kirishima takes it a little too far and beats the crap out of Bakugo because Kirishima didn't know, but he had feelings for Mitsuki, and Bakugo just takes the beating and doesn't fight back ever. He stopped being physical with anybody at all. He doesn't even want to touch his parents because he thinks that he'll hurt them. So we skip another 2 years, and Toya is a third year, and he's known as one of the big three. In this one, it's going to be big five. And there's going to be 5 people: Mirko, Toya, Mirio, Tamaki, and Nejire are the big 5. And Mitsuki has met Tamaki, Mirio, Nejire, and Mirko before, or Rumi, whatever you want to call her. And she calls them family. And it's the day of the entrance exams, and she has a guaranteed entry into UA, but she still wants to see how she fares against the other students of UA, and her sadistic personality is taken over, and every time something tragic happens or something drastic happens, the one of the 3 personalities takes over. And she's added a few more personalities. She's added the loving personality. She's added the no, she's added one, the loving personality, and that's kind of fused with her childish personality a little. Her mad personality is fused with her depressed. So she walks in to the auditorium and sees the test on the table, and she's the first one there. So she flips the test over, does the test, flips it back over. And when Mike walks into the room, he sees her and says, "You may turn in the test early if you want." And she walks up and hands him the test, saying, "Damn, is Nezu getting stupider or am I just getting smarter?" And then he goes, "I think it's a little bit of both, little listener." And she goes, "I'm not little, I'm taller than you." And he goes, "Dang, a little sassy, aren't we?" And she goes, "Well, I don't like annoying people. And if you want your jaw broken," and she starts cracking her knuckles, being like, "If you want your jaw broken, I can easily help you quiet down." And Aizawa was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. You promised you wouldn't attack people." And she goes, "Yes, but that's also how I get my anger out." And All Might goes, "Haha, I am here. And I am here to help with that." And she goes, "Oh, I get a punching bag." And she rockets off to All Might. And he's like, "Not yet. We must go to ground beta." And Eraserhead says, "No." Which one's the dirt one? I think it's ground gamma. "Go to ground gamma." And he goes, "Sorry, ground gamma." And so he rockets off to ground gamma by jumping, and she follows quickly after. Like, "This is going to be fun." And so they get there, and if Bakugo and All Might had the same speed and strength, Bakugo would have won. And since she is absolutely ripped, she is inhumanly strong, and she uses her explosions to increase her force behind her kicks, punches, and steps. She cracks her knuckles, cracks her neck, and starts stretching a little and says, "You ready, old man?" And the sadistic side starts smiling. And he goes, "I am only 40, but yes, I am ready." And he gets into a fighting stance. he knows that he needs to go 100% or she's gonna rock his world with pain. And she rockets towards him and he throws a punch. She throws a punch. They collide and there's a giant explosion. So the same size explosion that happened at the sports festival happens then. And so she's like, damn, are you getting weak? You're so much stronger than this on TV. And he goes, ha ha ha, you see, I was injured by a villain, and he's a very strong villain. And she goes, I don't care. Let's continue. And he goes, okay. And they continue fighting, and the same thing happens like at the USJ where he's trading punches with the Nomu, but he's trading punches with Mitsuki. And she just seems to be getting faster and faster and faster. And she seems to be getting happier and happier. And he's like, what the hell is going on? And what no one has figured out is when her emotions split into multiple personalities, her quirk evolved. When she's sadistic, her quirk is more of rip it apart and send it everywhere to make shrapnel. And the more she uses her quirk and the more dehydrated she gets, the more berserk she goes. The faster and stronger she gets. So she's getting so fast and so strong, All Might's having a hard time keeping up with her. And she stops and is like, I'm good now, and faints from dehydration because she's forcing her body to sweat. And he's like, oh crap. And Recovery Girl walks in and says, I know her quirk. I know that she gets dehydrated very easily. And she brings up a bottle of water, and she brings up a injection to add moisture into her bloodstream because her blood's getting really thick from the dehydration. And so she does, and a little, like 5-10 minutes later, Mitsuki wakes up. And she looks around and goes, what happened? And the sadistic side's not taken over. The child side's not taken over. Normal Mitsuki is taken over. So all of them are combined for a short time and taken over. And it's all on autopilot. And she goes, what happened? And All Might starts explaining that you did all this destruction and I had to fight you in a spar and you pushed me to my limit. And he's steaming at this point, and he poofs down to Small Might and he says, I have a question for you, young Mitsuki Bakugo. And Aizawa's like, oh god, here we go. And he says, I have limited time left, and I want you to take over as the symbol of peace. And she starts laughing her ass off. And the sadistic side starts taking more control. And she just starts laughing like a maniac. And Aizawa's like, oh god, what did he do? And the sadistic side says, no, not yet. When Mitsuki finally heals. And All Might's like, what do you mean when Mitsuki finally heals? And she explains the personalities and what they do and how they affect her and her quirk. And Aizawa's overhearing all this and says, so that's why the child one wants to say one phrase in front of your biological brother? And Sadistic goes, yeah. So it's now the practical exam, and so Mitsuki walks up to the door, and she's in ground beta, and Bakugo's in ground alpha, training ground alpha, and she walks up to the door, and President Mike is in a 3, a 2, and the doors start opening, and she shimmies through it before he could say go, and Ida, who didn't see her in the testing room, is like, "Who the hell is she? And she's cheating. You should disqualify her." And he goes, "There's no countdowns in a real battle. Get the hell in there." And so everybody starts running in, and they see this field of absolute and utter destruction. And she's on like the 30th robot that she's found, and she's like, "Oi, 4 Eyes." And he looks over and goes, "That is very rude." And she goes, "I don't care. Start destroying robots. I can't take them all out." And he goes, yeah, right." And he starts running, and he starts beating the ever-living crap out of robots with his legs and engines. So it's 10 minutes into the 15-minute test, and the zero pointer is released. And she looks at it. Oh, crap. And she sees a huge training dummy. So she walks up to it, and her explosions at this point, because she's gotten a little dehydrated, are massive and powerful, because everything increases when she gets more and more dehydrated, but the further and further dehydrated she gets, the more uncontrollable her the sense of euphoria is, and the more she wants it. So she walks up to the robot, and she's like, "This is easy." And she just does a slight uppercut with full strength to the base of the wheel, or base of the leg, and the leg completely blows off. It's completely shredded by the explosion. And so it's falling forward, and she uses a explosion to backpedal, and she's right at its head, where a kid is about to get crushed. And she cocks back her arm and waits like maybe a few seconds. No, like 3 seconds, and she's like, 3, 2, 1, and she full blown smashes that thing into orbit. Yeah, she's that powerful. The sadistic version. Mitsuki's going to be even more powerful, by the way. And she's like, "I'm good." And she uses one of her explosions to get on top of a roof, and this roof is specially designed, so if someone gets if she gets thirsty, she can go up there and get water. Because if it wasn't like that, she would faint and die from dehydration very easily, because she dehydrates herself very quickly. So she starts chugging a few bottles of water, and I'm going to leave it there. So Toga is also in training ground alpha. Mitsuki has just destroyed the zero pointer. Toya is one of the big 5. And there's a chance that she can get her original personality back. I'm going to end it there. If you guys like this series, please tell me on Discord. I'm going to put a Discord link in the description. So please tell me there. And I'll talk to you guys later. Goodbye.